God damn it. Like, I'm curious, like, you've been doing it, you started so long ago, and you were doing, like, you know, like the comedy came before you're doing the voice stuff, right? Like stand-up?
The voice stuff started, believe it or not, right around the time of the comedy.
Okay.
The stand-up was definitely first, but the voice stuff I started to work more in than stand-up. I mean, I was doing, open mics when I was 18 or whatever. But the voice stuff, I got more gigs in the beginning doing voice stuff than I did in stand-up, and then the stand-up just kind of
I had a feeling
along.
there was a connection there, just because, like, I mean, of course, I've heard your voice in tons of animations throughout the years, and one of my favorite, by the way, is Ratatouille, because it's just so perfect. That it's
beautifully done, wasn't it? I mean, my
amazing movie.
The art in that is
the story. And but then I was like, I'm curious. I'm going to be talking to Brad. I'm going to look up just to see. And I couldn't believe, like, have you seen your IMDb?
I try not to look at it.
It's insane. Like
Hulk
Hogan.
Hulk Hogan.
I mean,
was one of my first ones.
Yeah.
It was one of my first animated gigs.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan. And I remember the guy who was a huge voiceover guy next to me, named Ron Feinberg. And he did the voice of Andre the Giant. And he was a guy about 20 years older than me. I was brand new. And he was another big dude, big character actor, played a lot of thugs. And he had amazing pipes. And I walked in there, when I'm like 23, and I'm like, hey, how are you? And it was like my first real animated series. And Ron looked at me and goes, kid, you're going to want to sit down. It's going to be a long day. Because, I was doing stand-up. Yeah. So I'm behind the mic, standing up, doing my thing, and everyone is seated. They're like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah.
And sure enough, after like an hour of being beaten up by the director, he's like, take a seat, kid. Take a seat.
It's going to be a long day.
It's going to be a long one. And yeah.
So you were 18 when you first started doing the open mics.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. This kind of goes back to what you asked me before about how did you just have the cojones, to get up there and do that. My father-in-law, when I told him I'm going to do stand-up, he's like, are you out of your mind? Like, and I was like, no, I can. Sure. But I think part of it is that I'm 43. I've got 4 daughters. I've lived a lot. I've experienced a lot. I went through divorce. I got a vasectomy. I got a reversal. I got a lot of shit that I've experienced. And these 18-year-olds don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I feel confident. I feel like I'm not going to say anything unless I think it's funny, if it makes me laugh. And I just got to figure out how to put this. I got to set it up. I got to punch it, whatever I got to do. And I could feel comfortable in the writing, and then I just have to deliver. But the writing is the hard part for me. Is that I got to come up with original ideas. But when you were 18, how did you decide, like, I mean, were you always funny? Was it just something you just naturally, did someone dare you to do it? Like, how did that start?
For me, believe it or not, it was survival. I was 6 feet at 13. I couldn't dribble a ball. I couldn't make a layup. I was bullied constantly because I was just, everybody thought either that I flunked 3 grades. I was as tall as my teacher in the 4th grade, to give you an example. So it's like I had no, if you're not a jock and you're a fucking giant, and you got a head like B. Arthur, people are going to be like this. And what's great is when you can fuck with a big guy and he won't fight back.
Yeah,
you're the soup du jour, man. I mean, you're going, watch what I do to this guy.
Yeah.
So my thing was, you know what? I'm going to make fun of myself. Because there's a lot of self-deprecating shit in my act, but a lot of it is me, riffing off the audience, whatever. I mean, we've seen it a million times. It's nothing that great. But it was like, if I make fun of myself before they do, I'm not trying to make this sound like Dr. Phil, but it's like, if I could shit on myself and have a sense of humor, and then have a couple lines to fend off the bully, because most bullies aren't that sharp. If they're not shoving you, they're smelling their fingers. You know what I mean? It's this type of people. So I said, if I could give him a little shot and give me a shot, verbally, then maybe I'll get around a group that can protect me. So I ended up in the goon squad, with all the redheads, all the nerds, all the, the island of misfit toys.
Yeah.
And the humor was my thing. And I was kind of like the class cut up, the class clown, but I noticed that the teachers were starting to laugh. So it wasn't just being disruptive, but if you can get your teachers laughing early on while you're interrupting them, there was a little thing there of like, maybe, because a lot of kids can make kids laugh. But when you are a kid and you can make an adult laugh, that's kind of when you go, well, maybe this is something. So it really came out of defense and just out of being insecure. And I still am, I'm still nervous before I walk out of my own club. If you had my act, Jason, you would understand, But like Ray and I will work. He's like, why don't you spend 10 minutes and write a joke? You're making fun of a guy's hair, for 10 minutes. Come on, And I'm like, all right, Ray. Go on your jet and just think.
But there's something about that. Like, that's the one thing, like I said, like, I'm so new at this, and then it got cut off just like everyone else, and so I still feel like I'm just a newborn, with all this stuff, but that's one thing that I've always thought about, while I was doing it, and what I still think about now. Like right now, basically, I just write and stuff and talk to myself with a spoon as a microphone or whatever. But
sure,
it's the crowd work thing. That's the thing that, because I've only had to do it a couple times, because after the Steve thing, you only get 4 or 5 minutes,
of course.
And so there's so much material I can't practice. I can only do a little bit at a time.
Sure.
But sometimes you're sitting there and someone says something and you're like, oh, and just something comes to you and you kind of go into it. Like the last time there was like these college kids that were just being complete idiots in the front. And I spent basically all my 4 minutes just trashing these guys, but it
worked.
It did, because it was good, but I didn't even think I was being funny. I was kind of I was really annoyed with them, because I was like,
but you had to deal with those fuckers.
Yeah, exactly.
Or there was no way your material was going to fly.
I couldn't do it. It just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So, but I have a huge respect for like those kind of comics that can do that. I mean, I know after years of doing it, you get better at it, but I mean, do you know who Russ Maneve is?
I don't.
He's a New York comic, and he's pretty awesome. But I went to see him in Chicago here, and it was hilarious because he basically spent the entire set doing crowd work.
I love that.
And I got to hang out with him, and I was asking him about it, and he was like, "Oh no, I was supposed to do my set, but these guys, they were being dicks," and then it led to this person and that person. Then someone gets up and leaves, and then he dresses that, and then next thing you know, it's 30 minutes of just but it was brilliant. It was like
it's definitely a different niche to be able to work crowd stuff. And the real great writers will go, oh, that's hacky, that's not a bit, that's not material. And then there are guys that are brilliant writers that are so captivating that they don't even acknowledge anything in the crowd unless it gets really bad. And at that point, the management should say something. But I've just always loved working in the moment. To me, because I've been doing it for so long. And a lot of it was I spent so many years as an opening act for major, stars. And when you're an opening act in Vegas or out on the road and you're opening for big music acts, no one wants to see you, obviously. And I would keep doing my stuff. And the more I would do it, the more my stuff wouldn't go over. I just started breaking out of it and fucking with the audience. And that was the first time I was able to get people's attention.
Yeah.
And because I was breaking that fourth wall, and a lot of comics, very few were opening acts nowadays. I mean, for like big name music acts which is really where I cut my teeth. I mean, I was working arenas with Julio Iglesias or Diana Ross, and people are walking in while you're on stage or they're ordering dinner.
Yeah.
So it's really a different dynamic to get through that. And it's almost like if you don't mess with the audience as an opening act, it's almost like, you know, they know you're not going over.
Yeah. I feel
So
like you
if
do
you don't
need to
change
acknowledge
gears,
them.
You got to
know?
change gears.
Catch new episodes of Face the Truth podcast every Monday and make sure to like and subscribe.